Greetings and welcome. I'm Rebecca Carner, Biofiled tuner. I'd like to start today with a poem by James Pearson, How to Build a Tree. Sometimes your next halting step is more powerful than the grandest vision. All a leaf knows about how to build a tree is to turn towards the light. All right, and with that, I'm going to just put sometimes your next halting step is more powerful than the grandest vision. All a leaf knows about how to build a tree is to turn towards the light. I was texting with a friend yesterday, and we were exchanging text check-ins about how our days had been going. And I said something about being in my body and moving through time and space. And my friend texted back, "Really? You're moving through time and space? I feel like I'm tumbling." And I texted back, "I think tumbling is the new steering because the orientation lately, the speed of life, the intensities of basically everything, and how one gets one's bearings, finds one's vector, makes decision, knows that your feet are even under you at all. Like all of that seems to be changing, or that's changing for many people. And if you are one of those for whom it feels like life's been hitting a little different lately, it's like, how do you make these sensations the new normal, right? So I'm filming this on a Wednesday morning in early April 2026. But this sensation of finding a new normal is a perennial condition, as if you are awake and aware in your life, and or if you go through anything sort of spiritual or holistic in your life, there is a perennial occurrence of feeling weird in your life, right? Feeling weird in your body, feeling like, I know how to drive, but like, what am I doing? And, what's going on here? And what? So that is really, and then realizing, oh, this is my new normal. Oh, this is how I move now. I don't remember what it was like to go from crawling to walking as a toddler, but one's orientation is completely different. And yet that progression is needed and sort of predestined and appropriate. But the orientation in your body, the distance from the ground, like all of the things are radically different from one method to the next. And in less concrete ways, that happens many times in an evolved lifespan or a perpetually evolving lifespan, even though it might happen a little less concretely, but the sensations are there. So I've sort of harped on and on about it, and all of my teachers and sort of everyone in my community keeps resounding out the same refrain, which is how to be more embodied in this time, how to be more in your body, move from impeti from within, how to Well, I mean, for many of us, it's a perpetual arriving back into our body, reconnecting, sort of perpetually reestablishing the relationship with our own awareness without turning off a signal, without denying something that's happening within us. In the Pearson poem, all a leaf knows about how to build a tree is to turn towards the light. But even in that last line, to turn towards the light, the leaf would have to have some sort of orientation of itself and then where the light source is, right? To then turn effectively towards the light, not even knowing that the magic that happens when the light hits the surface of itself, that is the very engine of what builds the tree. The tree cannot live without it. But in the leaf just leafing, it doesn't know that, right? And to move to figure out what is right for each one of us, to navigate, to move through space and time, even when it feels like you're tumbling. The realization that you are maybe so much as effectively steering, but in different gravitational pull than what you were accustomed to. The only thing ultimately that you can source a directional origin point from is within, because everything external is changing and many, many things are very neededly crumbling. And culturally and personally, many of us have taken a lot of our orientation points from external sources. And if you're finding that that isn't proving effective, and you're seeking more embodied awareness and embodied lived experience. I mean, in many ways, yes, I am talking about, breathing and breathing into the body and, quote, knowing how you feel. That's part of it. But there's something a little more both nuanced and potent, because I'm not just talking about doing body scans, right? It's really considering right, what's coming to me is realizing that the origin point of movement is not what we see reflected in any mirror, right? Effectively, being a human creature, we live in a constant feedback loop about what we think, say, do. That puts out a signal in the world that gets reflected back to us by interpersonal mirrors, by professional mirrors, by cultural mirrors. And that is how we create our reality, and that's how we move through a life. But the sort of weight of what do I do or which way do I go, to put the weight of your ignition on an external source, that's giving away your agency. That's giving away your sovereignty and really your divine birthright in that way. If all we have is our energy, and then secondarily, quote, our time. But I mean, even, time is a funny elastic friend, it is. But if all we have agency and command over in that way is our energy, then to have the GPS housed outside of us by being in a mirror, right, that's really giving away our potency, our power. Empowerment comes from embodiment. Right, okay, and right there, can feel that. All right, so let's really, each the one of us, ground into our selfness, right? You got allotted a dollop of existence by the cafeteria line of existence, and your dollop that you animate, I call it affectionately meat suits, right? But your dollop of existence is this vehicle that you're trucking around in. And what do I do? In a recent contemplation, Richard Rudd really prompted everyone to not waste any energy spending time with those who do not or cannot share your values. Surround yourself with people who recognize you. There are more coming. And even doing the inventory, even doing the body awareness scan of what your values are, what your priorities are, what your essentialism is based on, that, wow, that is where embodiment begins. And then to be very honest, not only am I living into what I say I value effectively, but am I cohorting with, am I hanging out with people and in arenas, whatever they are, that support those same values? Wow. Really good. Really good work. Yeah. And be mindful of any dissonances between what is said, what is purported to be a value, versus what is actually done. Does it reflect what you think that value is and looks like, right? And to be compassionately, but deeply discerning about that. Because if you can't find a true expression of that value even where it claims to be, or even where you thought it was, or it used to be, or whatever, you don't have to make that thing wrong. You just have to remove yourself from it. As David Clemens says, simply let it come away from you. Now, bless his lovely, kind British English, but sometimes letting something come away from you can be a big loss, can be the loss of a comfort zone or a primary relationship. It can be the loss of community. And in the short term, right, so you've already figured out, oh, that what I value isn't being expressed here, or I can't express my values effectively when I am here, so I have to come away from that. So not only did you just figure out a deficit, but then you have to move into temporary more deficit, right? You have to move from realizing something isn't there to, if you're moving away from people or relationships or jobs or communities or whatever, you're also losing a familiarity. You're losing something known but after having realized that something isn't there that you need. And that, I can phrase that in really eloquently and very poetically. But it hurts and it feels hard, and our nervous systems seek what we know, even if it's not getting it fully. And to temporarily restrain that, it just doesn't feel good, friends. And I really am sympathetic to that. Yeah. Gosh, whoo, the fork is, yeah, let's just sit with that. And for those of us who have built up the mental, emotional, bodily, and spiritual, the physical and metaphysical resiliency to tuck into that measure of grind, not pushing out there grind, but holding yourself to the rigor of doing something hard in the short term for the better later. I think, is this Super Stephen? Oh, thanks for, hi, Stephen. Welcome back. Thank you for being here. And to really hold yourself, because it's a process, right? There's no way of knowing, oh, I made the right decision, or because I know this isn't the thing, I've kind of been, if I'm honest, I've kind of been having this nagging sensation in the back of my head that I needed to shift this aspect of my life. To know that, and then to sort of get ready and then do it. But the ability to hold the uncertain and the unknown and the temporary, our animalistic brains will always temporarily deem it as uncomfortable or somehow unsavory, making these change. And you can, again, verbally wax, oh, I know it was the right decision. I know something good is coming. I trust I have it. Yeah, I mean, that's, all of those things are true, but I know I am not alone when in those moments deep inside, sometimes when you're by yourself, sometimes when you're around others and just feeling like my friend texted me yesterday that they were tumbling through space in those tumble moments. It's hard and it feels hard. And this is what resiliency is. The woman who developed Biofiled tuning, Eileen McCusick, has alternate property. She is American, but she has alternate property in Jamaica. And in the early days of COVID, she got stuck on the island because of travel restrictions, and she wound up tuning a lot of locals there. And then she was there, I mean, maybe a year, like kind of a long time, 11, 14 months, something, a long time, relatively speaking, for those, who have the ease of travel. And when she got back, she started tuning white Americans again for the first time in a long time, and certainly for the first time after having such a pronounced gap since she even developed Biofiled tuning. And she really talked about publicly in one of her videos the sort of mealy, mushy consistency of the periphery of the white American field versus the sort of tenacious surface tension of a lot of the Jamaican locals, because living on an island is hard. And there is much poverty in Jamaica, and people's lives are not ermine lined, vessels of ease. And the sort of reverberant, tenacious resiliency that was palpable in local Jamaicans' fields versus the field generated by the far, far more privileged white public was really noticeable to her. And I think about that often with various measures of privilege, ease, comfort as cultural markers and milestones in our culture. Those things in the land of energy have a cost. Kind of like when you feed your pets only soft dog or cat food, they lose their teeth because you need the crunching to activate the piezoelectric quality of the teeth and jaws. And I mean, in that way, we are no different than cats or dogs. James Nestor, in the book Breath, does a really beautiful job of talking about the modern, largely white European skull and mandible formation, and how a lot of the apnea and breathing problems and orthodontia problems in white privileged Western world is because we don't chew nuts and bark and bones and gristle and that kind of thing. And we've lost the tone and the shaping of the mechanics of our faces, and we can't breathe because of it. And that the same thing is in our field, the same thing. I mean, as within, so without. The same thing is true emotionally and spiritually. I mean, it really is that catch-22. Too much cortisol, right? Too much stress makes you sick. But no stress, right? No rigor makes one sick. And so, but if all a leaf knows about how to build a tree is to turn towards the light, we are all leaves in that way. And it is up to each of us. It is both up to us and it is our right sovereignty. It's our joy, right? We get to figure out where we are and then turn ourselves towards the light. And then that is how so much of what we can't use of the out there as an appropriate reflection right now, that's how that improves, is actually toward this incredibly subtle, incredibly internal awareness building, arriving, and then moving from here. That's it. That's it. That's it. Really good. Really good. So again, I am filming this in early April in Atlanta, Georgia, and the bird song this year, the amount of birds, I mean, it's a thing every year, right? When they come back, even more so in the spring, but it has been particularly symphonic this year. And just outside the window in my studio here, I can hear a bird really going to town. And I was thinking, if I were a tree, right, if I'm a leaf on a tree of the cosmos, as are we all, each the one of us has to turn towards the light. And it isn't the very next day. It's not that first hour, and it's not the very next day. But as we breathe and trust and stand in resiliently in our embodiment, and assure ourselves when we are facing the light, trusting that we feel it, trusting that we're at the appropriate angle, trusting that we are fully receiving the light, giving ourselves the validation of knowing I am turned towards my North Star in this way. Then eventually the way that we know that we're doing it right is because the birds will come, because we are the most beautiful tree, right? They will want to build their nests. They will want to sing for their mates. Because when you're just a leaf, you don't know sometimes how the whole tree is doing. But eventually, those mirrors back will reflect the coherency. We're seeing so much dissonance right now because what wasn't the thing. It wasn't the thing. In the end, people's values really weren't truly and effectively being expressed and rendered. So much is falling, and it's terrifying. And it's right on time, as Pam Gregory says. And we're each living through it. Yeah, yeah. And to be so compassionate when you feel scared, when it feels bad. If you momentarily go back or seek a comfort that wasn't really wholly the thing, and you are moving away from it, but your body just needed to touch base on the familiar, it's okay. And then wake up and try again. And then if you go back to the familiar and realize, wow, I can't fit back into this box. It's familiar, but it doesn't feel right. My values aren't being lived into here. I can't be my full self. I can't find the light when I'm here. I came back because I thought I missed it, but you know, that expression there. Sometimes there really is no going home. Because sometimes there aren't, there are people in truly, truly, truly devastating circumstances. I'm not talking to those people are probably not watching this video, and I'm not insinuating that those people need to simply turn towards the light. I'm talking about those of us who are in relatively safe and generative spaces, who have a lot of agency and privilege and choice, right? That's the audience that this is for. And then that's how you test, right? By being in this embodiment and sort of moving back and forth, right? Trajectory isn't, the road to anywhere. Only on GPS does it make the little blue line and it goes straight or whatever, because in reality, getting anywhere is filled with twists and turns, right? Yeah. That's right. And so being where you are, being grounded, if you take sometimes your next halting step is more powerful. And then even if the step after that is to go back and to see if you can sort of fit back into the box, unshoot that bullet, unscramble that egg. And if you can't, it's okay. Then take the next halting step and just keep turning towards the light. Yeah. And if your arms get tired and you have to put them down for a minute and sort of puddle where you are, it's okay. It's okay. That's part of the circuitous route. Yeah, really good. Really good. Really good. All right, I'm going to wrap this up and drop this into ground. And I am I'm going to put, this is one of the Fibonacci, and I'm going to put this vibratory fork on my sternum and use my body, my actual physical form, as a proxy body for the collective. Because to be embodied, we have to be in ourselves, in our selfness, in our heart space, in our core in our feet, in our here and now, even if that is uncertain, even if that is in pain, even if that is having a great day in the midst of the world looking a little wackadoo out there. It's okay. Please, if you're having a good day, have the good day. Turn towards the light. Being in your light is easy today. Relish it, celebrate that, because that reverberates possibility to all the surrounding leaves, that they too can find what you have in this day, in this now moment, because it's always changing. It's always changing. Oh, I don't know. I don't think I've done a vibratory fork since I got this new mic. I don't know if it picks it up at all, but this is an 89 hertz. I think that's right. Yeah, 89 hertz. It's part of the Biofiled tuning Fibonacci set off the Biofiled tuning store. All right, I'm going to wrap up the session with the 528. Nice, there we go. And I really want to wrap into each and every person's field in the ethers, but particularly those who find this video and watch it, your ability to orient yourself inside yourself, do a beautiful self-assessment and then environmental assessment of your values and if they are being appropriately expressed, and then moving from there. It is beautiful, beautiful work. It's tender and deep work. And it isn't for the faint of heart. But, I don't know about anybody else out there, but I hadn't found living and humaning being for the faint of heart kind of in general. So it's like, okay, then, if it wasn't going to be particularly easy, then let's do this shit right, friends, right? Let's do it right. We can't. I'm here. And I don't mean right like right and wrong. I mean, like, let's do it resoundingly. There. Right on. I'll end with that. Okay, RebeccaCarner.com if you're looking to connect, if you want more information. I will be having some public events in the Atlanta area coming up later this spring. And if you would like a private session either in the Atlanta area or at distance, please contact me for more information. Be well. April is hitting different. And that, I think I say that on every video, and because it is, right? And we're here for it. I'm here for it. Please find your people. Do not waste any of your energy with people who cannot or will not uphold your same values. That was great advice from Richard Rudd, and I will repeat it. All right, friends. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Be safe, be well. Love is love.